I know that.
You know I can find that.
No.
You're assuming because I or 312, 312.
So I get to save $5?
We had it in my office before the pandemic.
I thought it was good.
All right.
That's a call.
I'm overheated, can hardly sleep at night, doing crazy dreaming. You're the reason why. Hiding by the baby, losing my mind. Don't try to stay.
Well, guys, I got a little confession to make. I was playing the other day. In fact, it was 2 days before the meetup game, and I was running really, really bad. Got a couple really big hands snapped, and then I tilted. Yeah, I did it. I probably wasted another $600-700 when I was tilting, and I'm not very proud of it, but I just thought you guys should know. I'm human too.
You tilted? I can't believe you did that. Hasn't any of my coaching got through that thick head of yours? Let's face it, humans are not cut out for poker. They are undisciplined, weak-minded, results-oriented donkeys in clothes. I'm so disappointed in you.
It's just a little reminder to my poker coach that dogs are not perfect. They do have a lot of tells when they play poker, so if you end up playing with Zeus, just watch his tail. It gives everything away. Well, Andrew, Locke, and Cindy came out a little bit early for the meetup game, and we ended up headed to a Kings game. I have to say that the Kings have been quite impressive this year. Everyone knows I'm a Warriors fan, but if I'm not rooting for the Warriors, I wish the Kings well. It's been 16 years since they got to the playoffs, and they are playing fantastic basketball. So I think if they don't run into the Warriors, that they have a chance of going deep. Anyway, this is the victory celebration, the photo. Everyone in Sacramento knows what that beam, that laser beam up in the sky means. It means the Kings won a game. But enough about basketball. Let's head on over to Capital Casino for our 1-3 meetup game with Andrew, Locke, and Kenichi. Get there a little bit early. There were some players waiting, so we just decided to fire up the game right away. We start off with a bomb pot for $15. We have 8 players. I'm under the gun, and I look down at Queen Jack of Diamonds. Pretty good hand to start off with, especially when the flop comes King 9-8 with 2 diamonds. So I got a gutter, and I got a flush draw. Not much else. I checked it. Player behind me bets for $30. Kind of a small bet. Doesn't think he's too powerful. Everybody seems to fold out to the player to my right, who also decides to put in the call for the $30. So it doesn't seem like anyone's too strong here. I think that my draw has a lot of equity, and if I put a little pressure on them, I think they're going to end up folding. So once the player puts in his $30, I decide to make it $130. I could probably go a little bit bigger, but I really don't think anyone has too much. Anyway, they both end up folding quickly, so we end up taking down our first pot of the day with Queen High. Well, it doesn't take us long before we find ourselves in another interesting spot. There is a $10 straddle, and it's folded to me in the cutoff with King Queen suited. Definitely good enough to put in a raise. I make it $30. It's folded back to the person in the straddle, and he compiles a raise to $75. Now, I played a lot of poker with him, and he is a very tough opponent in many ways. And sometimes he likes to play hands without looking. And I haven't seen him looked at his hand yet, so I'm thinking maybe this is one of them. So I'm going to play this hand and calm him down fairly light. And if I flop something, I might just feign weakness just so he will go for a bluff. So when the flop comes King High, and he checks it over to me, I normally would bet this, but I'm going to check this back just because I think he'll fire at it if he senses weakness. The turn card, on the other hand, is a bad card. It's the Ace of Hearts. Now he compiles a bet for $105. If I thought he was looking at his hand, I probably would just fold to this bet. But as I said, I think he was going to bluff at this no matter what the turn card was. So I just kind of plugged my nose and put the 105 in, getting ready to call him down with second pair. The river card comes as a jack of clubs. He checks it over to me, and at this time I realized that he probably did look at his hand and that I'm toast. He probably has an ace, so I just check it back. He says I was good, and I rolled over my king queen. He later told me he had pocket queens. All right, there's a $6 straddle. Player opens for 15. Two people call the 15, and it's to me, and I make it 65. I really should be going about 85 to $100, somewhere in that range. The small blind, big blind both fold and outs to the initial straddler, and he thinks that $65 is a perfect price for him to play his hand, so he puts in the call. The initial raiser ends up folding, first limper ends up folding, and the second limper puts in the call. So we're going to go three ways to this flop with $220 in the middle. Well, the flop comes out king, queen, 8 with one club. Not a bad flop for ace, queen. Both players end up checking it over to me. And here I have a choice. I can either go for the bet or slow play this thing, protecting and kind of pot controlling. Of course, I decided to be a little bit on the aggressive side and put in a bet for $70. The first player who cold called the raise looks at his hand for a while and ends up folding. He later told me that he had the same hand, ace queen, and that he was concerned about the king being on board. The other player didn't have too much. He folds rather quickly, and we take this one down. We're about an hour and a half into the game, and we pick up a pair of nines in the big blind. There was a player that opened for a raise of 15. Player to my right calls, and I put in the call. Flop comes out 10 high with rainbow. So pretty good flop for nines. I check it to the initial raiser, who puts out a bet. And I'm thinking that I have a lot of outs. Maybe I can check raise, but the other player called, so I'm just going to put in a call and see what happens on the turn. Turn card is good. It's a 7 of diamonds. Definitely hits my range harder than it hits my opponent's. I check again. My opponent decides to bet, and this time he bets for $60. My plan is, if my opponent on the button puts in the call, I'm going to go ahead and check raise this thing representing a 7 and putting a lot of pressure on overpairs and top pair type of hands. But I didn't have the opportunity. The button ends up putting in a raise to 160. And I'm trying to figure out if he's doing this ever with a hand that's not containing a 7 or better. And I'm thinking, I was going to make a move on this pot, and now he put a stop to it. If he just flatted, I was going to put in a big raise and try to take this thing down. So after thinking a bit, I decided that there's no way he's doing this with anything less than a 7, so I ended up mucking it. The other opponent decides, well, maybe he's good. He's thinking for a while. Finally, he decides on folding his hand, which he later said was Jack 10, and the opponent on the button flashes that he definitely had a 7, as he shows the 7 of clubs. All right, we find ourselves in another bomb pot. This time we have king, queen offsuit. Flop is 9-8-3 with 2 spades. Absolutely nothing for me. So it gets checked, and it gets checked all the way around. Nobody seems to have too much. And now the turn is a king of hearts. Opponent to my right leads at this thing for a small bet of $25. I don't know what to do with this thing. I really don't like calling a bet early in position, but it's only $25. I could be running into 2 pair. I put in the call, and so do 2 other players. So we're going to end up going 4 ways to this turn card, which ends up coming a complete blank of a 2 of hearts. Should not help anyone here. So opponent to my right checks, I check, and now the player in the middle of the table puts out a bet for $110. Doesn't really make too much sense. If he had 2 pair or better, I think he would definitely want to put in a raise on the turn. I don't think a deuce made him 2 pair or better. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I think he's bluffing. I'm definitely going to be calling him down. But the player in the cutoff now has a look in his eye like he knows he's bluffing too. And so he's thinking about putting in a call. And I think he will probably call him fairly light. The big question is, what would I do if this person shoves? Because he has like another $150 behind. So I'll have to call a $260 bet on the river. And not only that, it reopens the betting for the other player in middle position. So it would be a tough situation, but I really think the guy in the middle position has nothing. So I'm pretty sure I was going to call if he went ahead and shoved, but it would be definitely an uncomfortable spot. Well, he doesn't shove. He ends up putting in the call, which makes my job a lot easier. Once the player to my right ends up folding, I expect to win this at a very high rate. I think queen kicker is probably going to be the difference. I put in the 110, and the first person says he's bluffing. Next person says he had a 9. So our king queen is golden, and we take down another pot. Running good so far today. All right, here we are in the +1 position. Player opens for 15 to our right, and we got ace king offsuit. Make it $50. It's folded back around to this player, and he decides that his hand is good enough to put in a call. So once he does, we're going to end up going heads up to a flop with $104 in the center. Looking for something good, and that's exactly what we get. We get a flop of king, queen, 4 with 2 spades. Top pair, top kicker. My opponent now checks over to me. I'm going to continue here for $40, looking to get value out of weaker hands. My opponent, on the other hand, has a different aspect of things. He decides to shove all in for $312. Not a very comfortable position for me. What hands would he be doing this with? Well, first one comes to mind would be a hand like king, queen. Another one that comes to mind would be a hand like pocket 4s. And then I start thinking, well, there's a lot of flush draws, a lot of straight draws, a lot of combo draws out there. There are a ton of draws. I'm not going to be able to get away with this. I put in the call, and he shows ace 7 of spades. So we just have to dodge a spade. Turn card's an ace of hearts. Good for us. River card, yeah, queen of spades. He gets there, makes the flush. He doubles through me, and that ended up being the last interesting hand of the evening. The game's been pretty quiet until the player on my right opens for $15. I look down at ace queen offsuit, decide to raise it to $50. Player to my left puts in the call for $50, and so does the player on the button. And as I said, the game has been really, really quiet. I mean, there hasn't been too many 3-bets, and when someone did 3-bet, it was just like fold, 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 fold. So here we're in the situation where I 3-bet, and it's a call, call, and a call. So it's going to be a pretty good sized pot. And as I said, this is like the very first time there's been any significant action pre-flop in this game. So I'm thinking the player behind me has a very strong range, probably something like a medium-sized pocket pair, maybe ace queen, ace jack type of hands. Player on the button might be a little bit lighter, and the player who opened could be even lighter than them. Flop comes out 8-3 deuce with 2 hearts. I do have the ace of hearts, but with 2 players behind me that probably have a pretty tight range, I'm going to just check this thing, see if I can get a free card. It ends up getting checked around. Turn card comes is a queen of diamonds. Beautiful card. We got top pair, top kicker. I'm guessing this is the best hand at this point. The other stacks aren't too deep, so I decided to go for a 60% pot size bet and make it $120. Player to my left has a smidge over 120 left in his stack. He decides to put in the call. And when he just flat calls, I'm thinking he has a hand like ace queen, maybe king queen, or a flush draw. Those are the only type of hands I really expect him to be playing this way. The other two players end up folding out, so it's just going to be the two of us going to the river, looking to dodge a diamond, because everything else I'm okay with. River card comes is the 7 of diamonds. He says he got there. I show him my hand, and he rolls over ace jack of diamonds. He didn't charge me for the last $7 he had in his stack. I got queen jack of diamonds in under the gun position, open for a raise to 15. End up getting a slew of callers, in fact 4 of them. So we're going to go 5 ways to this flop with $75 in the pot. Well, we see a flop that comes out 10-9-9 with the 10-9 of diamonds. So we flop an open end straight flush draw. This is the type of hand that I'm just going to be going with. I'm going to try to build a pot. So I start off with a small bet of $25. Player to my direct left puts in the call for the $25. Player next to him also calls for the 25. The small blind player also puts in the call, and the player to my right releases. So we're going 4 ways to a turn of a 8 of spades. What a beautiful card. We make the nut straight, and we have a redraw to a straight flush if we need it. Player in the small blind decides to check it over. I'm going to be betting this, of course. I decide on a size of $80. It's a little bit on the small side, but none of the stacks are very deep, and I want to get action on this hand. And if someone has a hand like 10-9 or 9-8, they're just going to get all my chips. There's no two ways about it. So I want to get action from a hand like Jack 10, maybe a lone 10, maybe some sort of smaller straight draw like a 7-6. Maybe they took one off. I don't know. But I don't want to scare anyone out. I kind of want the volume on this type of hand. I get one caller for the $80, and then the small blind also puts in the call for the 80. So I don't think anyone has a full house at this time. I figured the small blind would go ahead and raise if he did. So maybe they have a hand like Jack 9, maybe a hand like 9-7 if they have a 9. River card comes as a 7 of clubs. So the 9-7 gets there. Jack 9 makes a straight. Jack 10 makes a straight. And the player in the small blind puts out a pretty substantial size bet. And it's $165. Now, I have them covered. I don't think there's anything here to do other than just put in the call and hope the player behind me puts in some sort of overcall with a weaker hand. So I think in this situation, getting max value would be just to flat this bet. As I said, he might have a full house anyway. He might have me beat. I don't think he does, but it's always a possibility. But I'm going to put in the 165, hope the player behind me puts in the same. And if all is right in the world, we will win a very large pot. Opponent to my left decides to make the call. We got a $910 pot. First player rolls over Jack 10. We got that beat, and the other one has pocket jacks. So our Queen Jack takes it all down. $910 headed our way. I just want to give a special thank you for all those players that came out to support the meetup game. It was really nice meeting all of you and playing with you. I really do appreciate your support. I also like to thank Capital Casino for hosting the event. And as a fan of Andrew Locke's poker vlogs, it was nice to see him back in action. I hope he continues, but he has other passions right now, and whatever he decides, I will back him on that. As for the results, I ended up winning $675. I just ran good. Basically, I think I ran fantastic. The only spot where I ended up losing was that last hand where I had ace king and the person flopped a nut flush draw and got there. But besides that, when I got my money in, I usually got it in good, and the hand held up. Thanks again for watching the vlog. I really do appreciate your support. If you haven't liked, subscribed, or hit that notification bell, please do so. It does help out the channel, and it makes Zeus happy. And right now he's a little disappointed in me for going on tilt, but such is life. So until next time, good luck at the tables, and we'll see you back here soon.